Yeah, Melvin and I want to welcome everyone to the AMA tonight. We got an iOS developer, React Native developer, Jerrick Warren on the call with us. Um, Jerrick is someone who started on Career Karma, just like you all have. He was actually one of our first users before we even had an app. And so you can learn more about his journey on our podcast. Tonight's AMA is going to be about iOS development and getting people started with XCode and realizing the differences, similarities that iOS and Swift have with JavaScript. Before we jump into discussing the requirements for the Pandora apprenticeship and how to get XCode set up, just want to say welcome, Jerrick.
Hey guys, welcome. Happy to be here for sure.
Yeah. So Jerrick, do you mind just giving people a quick rundown where you are now and how you got there?
Yeah, so for sure. So basically maybe about a year ago, I was basically in the same shoes as everybody else. I joined Career Karma, maybe a year and a half ago. I joined Career Karma and I was interested in learning how to code. And so I linked up with Timur, Ruben, and Artur, and I applied for, I think it was Hack Reactor, and then Lambda School and Flatiron, and I landed with Lambda School. Then I did the iOS development track for Lambda School because I was interested in mobile development. Thought it was pretty cool, use your cell phones and, make apps and stuff. And so I completed that. That was actually pretty dope. And then I went on to the interview trail, and that kind of took a couple months. Had a couple interviews, got through like the first phone phase, and then didn't make it to like the next stage. Then I finally made it to like after the first phone stage into the next stage, and then I had a whole bunch of projects at different companies, and then didn't make it past that. Then I actually got to hand some projects, and they liked them, and then I had some more interviews. And I didn't make it. And then it was just kind of like step by step by step. So currently right now, I'm working for Gemini. I am a mobile developer. We work on React Native, which is kind of like Android and iOS. It's written mostly in JavaScript. So tonight is going to be like an independent kind of like Q&A and question about more so Swift, but we can talk about JavaScript as well. I'm independent, so like none of my views like reflect Gemini or anything like that. I gotta say that for like legal reasons. Sure. But yeah, I'm so happy to be here and with you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jerrick, for this intro. I've literally saw your journey go from ground zero to where you are now, and we're also grateful for you to join our community and give back. For context, Jerrick, for you. Pandora is having an apprenticeship, or they're reviewing applications for their apprenticeship. There's 2 spots in Atlanta and 2 spots in Oakland.
That's dope.
We're interviewing for, and we had Maria, who is their like head of human resources, or she works for OnRamp, but she joined our AMA to discuss what are the requirements. And honestly, from what she was saying, I think most of the people on the call tonight actually qualify.
Good.
I think what might throw off some people is that the position they're interviewing for is for iOS, right? But on the call, she said that they just want people to have bare minimum experience, at least some experience with XCode. They want to see someone who has set it up, someone who spent 10 hours, 20 hours going through the tutorials that they provided our community with.
Good.
And I think the primary thing they're looking for is, can this person solve problems? So for anyone who has been learning JavaScript, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Now you just need to teach yourself the basics of Swift and XCode, and that could even be something you can emphasize in your interviews once you get to later rounds. That you told yourself, so much XCode and Swift in a very short period of time.
Absolutely. Just want to piggyback on what Timur said. Getting a job in the tech industry, it's less about what you know, and it's more pretty much more about like your discipline and your dedication to understanding and learning, right? So they hired me at Gemini without me really knowing a lot of JavaScript, right? So I learned on the job, right? And that's kind of because I had proven myself to know. See you later, man. Yeah, that was actually one of my managers. I'm still at the job, guys. That was because I proved myself to just kind of have the stick to itness, right? So don't be afraid about what you don't know. Don't like shy away and feel frustrated because people may know a little bit more or less than you or whatever. This is all at your own pace, and we're actually going to walk through some code together and answer some questions later on.
Cool. Melvin, you want to say a few words?
Yeah. So Jerrick, actually, before this call, I spent some time and I listened to your podcast episode. Actually, It turns out that it was one that I'd listened to before. So I was like, listening to this, and your story is so inspirational. And I highly, highly suggest everyone in this chat right now to go to whatever podcast app or player that you use, and go ahead and favorite his or like bookmark it in some sort of way, because he has a lot of just incredible insights of like, how do you overcome when like a million things are kind of hitting you all at once? Like, how do you kind of overcome that? And it's actually very inspirational to just like hear your story and see you become like a successful like mobile engineer at Gemini. So I'm honored to be able to just get to know you.
Hey man, I appreciate that, Melvin. Actually, the first step is what you guys are doing right now, forming community and coming together. Like, that's the first step for sure. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and before Jerrick jumps into his code and we start getting all technical here, I want to just address kind of the elephant in the room. And I saw a few posts. I don't know if Greg Jordan, if he's on the call tonight, but you're always, when you're in a job search or maybe you're getting closer to finishing your boot camp, you're always going to be running out of time, and your time is going to be spread out across learning how to code, applying for jobs, and doing 10 different things at once. And so for everyone who's on the call now, I want to just say that you are in the right place and you are doing the right things. Some people might feel like they want to go back to learn more, either algorithms or build more projects, and they're not ready to apply for jobs. However, we're here to tell you that you got to fake it till you make it. And especially with this apprenticeship opportunity, most of you are ready and qualified. You just need to take the right steps to show them that you got what it takes. And so over the next a week or two, give it your best shot. And I'm not saying stop doing everything else you're doing, right? Don't quit your boot camp. Don't stop your job search if you're already in one right now, but allocate 10, 20% of your time to actually go through the iOS tutorial, build projects, take this process seriously, because by end of February, you could be in a new job at Pandora. And Maria said it last week that 8 of the apprentices for the Android apprenticeships got their jobs 6 months into the apprenticeship. Every single person got their job. So by you spending 20% of your time doing this, this could actually set you up really nicely for a great company, and you'll bypass a job search altogether. So take it seriously. If you ever feel discouraged, post in your squad and don't hold back.
And you'll still have like the support system behind you. Like, our team is 100% here to support and help you guys in any way. That's why we have, Jerrick here helping us out, giving you guys some insights, and we'll be covering how to like tell your story in tomorrow's workshop. Like, we're really here for you, but we need you guys to go ahead and take full advantage of it. I think it could be a really incredible opportunity.
Yeah. Before we begin, what are some questions? What questions do you have for Jerrick around iOS? And we're not going to answer them all at once, but just so Jerrick knows what people are thinking, what questions you're wondering as he goes through the workshop.
So I do have a question. My problem is pretty much the opposite of yours, where you with Swift and Objective-C with Lambda, and I'm a Flatiron School student. Learning, Ruby on Rails and, JavaScript and React. I'm learning JavaScript now, but, going into this, I wanted to do iOS development as well. There weren't many options for that. The fact that this came around, it's an option for me. I'm really excited about it. I had the course that they, recommended already, and I just had never gone through it because I got so, focused on my boot camp. So I could have, had a little head start on these kind of things, but I've picked up Swift pretty quickly, the last couple of days that I've spent with it. But, there's still, questions that I have here and there. I know it's largely, object oriented. So, those kind of concepts kind of, click, coming from an object oriented language already. So I guess any advice you would have coming from Swift to JavaScript and then back again, or the differences you saw when you were learning, JavaScript after learning Swift, and what helped you pick those kind of things up?
Sure. Yeah, so it's actually interesting. So I'll start between app development with native versus React Native and kind of do an arc that way. So when you're building an app with Swift, and we'll go into it, but Swift is basically an object-oriented language. It's very type safe, and basically everything that you're passing around are objects in a form of a class or a struct, right? So just to kind of break that down, a class is something think of a class as a page, and everything that's written in that page can basically be transferred to another page. So say, for example, you wrote an essay, okay, and you wanted to actually give that essay to somebody else, you can actually photocopy it and put it on another page, like a template, right? A struct, for example, doesn't have what I just described as a template is called inheritance. And basically what a struct has is a struct doesn't have inheritance, right? A struct is basically like a recipe, right? So if you're cooking and you have a cookbook and you read the recipe, what you make out of that is going to be completely different than what's kind of on the page or the person who actually wrote it. So think of it like that. So you basically have a template and that you can pass to everybody else where everybody's on the same page, where you basically have a list of instructions, like a cookbook. I don't know if that helps, but that's the difference between a class and a struct. That's also an interview question, by the way. They always want to know the difference between a class and a struct. And the main answer to that is inheritance. So that's native development. Whether you're doing on Android or iOS, whatever. But when you move to React Native, you're using React for the most part. And for that, you're using what are called components, right? So if you want to have a text box, you would build that component. And if you want to have an image, you would build that component. If you want to have an image and a text box, you would build a component with both of those in. And you're basically hooking up all these components together, okay? And so if I was to answer your question on how to learn JavaScript and Swift, if you're just doing it in terms of just functional programming and you're going into the console and you're making functions, there's really a lot of things that are the same. With Swift, you have a little bit, and we'll see this, you have a little bit more stringent rules. An integer is an integer. A string is a string. A Boolean is a Boolean. With JavaScript, you can kind of fudge those a little bit. But if you're thinking about making apps with React Native, React is basically the backbone of that, which means that you're making components, all these little pieces together, and then putting them in a view, or if you've ever done any type of web, putting them in a div or something like that. I don't know if that answers it, but it's two different ways to think about it. There are a lot of free resources I'll give you, and I'll share links with, but that's kind of the idea. Very simply, always start from the beginning. When I want to learn Swift, I just go back to the fundamentals. When I want to learn JavaScript, I go back to the fundamentals of that too. And honestly, that's where you actually fill in the holes of what you thought you knew, but you never really understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense though.
Yeah.
I get the, I've spent probably a month and a half, maybe 2 months with JavaScript. bootcamp now, React, just getting to. So I haven't spent a whole lot of time with that, but I wanted to like see like the major differences in those languages, because I really wanted to focus in on the mobile development side of things anyway. Like that was my goal, getting into programming, and that's really what had me interested in learning React Native as well. Like I was going to teach that to myself on my own time, because like my bootcamp only covers like Ruby and JavaScript and React, but not React Native. So I had my own resources I was going to use to like pick that up myself. But Swift was like really what kind of got me into it. I'm really familiar with XCode, but I've never like built anything out completely with it. So like, and then I got around to like choosing a bootcamp and everything. Like when I was first looking, it was Lambda School and their iOS program, Flatiron School and their software engineering program, Thankful and their software engineering program. And most of those were like Thankful being like full stack JavaScript, Flatiron being like Ruby on Rails and like JavaScript and React as well. And then when it came to like Lambda, Swift, Objective-C, C, like I was really familiar with a lot of that kind of stuff. And like I never kind of wanted to do Lambda, but it kind of like Flatiron did end up being my first choice, even though they didn't have iOS development. I wanted to do like Dev Mountain, which also had an iOS program, but like there weren't a whole lot of options for like an online iOS program. So the route I kind of went was just more towards the software engineering side of things.
Sure. Yeah, I think like that's a good place to start. I mean, honestly, I would just stick with whatever you find is interesting and just kind of dive in. There's so many free resources, and there's a lot of things that you can do to teach yourself, and then prepare before you get into the boot camp, and then as you're going through the boot camp, that can actually supplement as well. So yeah.
All right.
I have a question.
Hey, Rosa.
Hi. I guess you can answer quickly or in general. What kind of questions did they ask? I once had a technical interview for React Native developer, and he was telling me that he was going to ask questions about algorithms. So it's probably going to be, in general, it could like relate to any language, right? Like Swift or something.
Absolutely.
What kind of questions did they ask you for in algorithms, or did they give you questions in algorithms?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So algorithms is a big deal. A lot of people ask just to see if you could understand kind of data structures, essentially. So it's algorithms and data structures. One of the things that they ask a lot is about memory. Okay, so for example, how is a variable stored? If you were to write over that memory, do you have like memory leaks, or is there a way to actually store it properly? And in Swift, we call that reference counting, strong references and weak references. So they ask a lot about reference counting. They also ask, how would you manipulate like an array of strings, right? Or an array of numbers, okay? They would ask you the difference thing, like I just said, between like a struct and a class. They'll ask you that. With React Native, they'll ask you more so about how would you design this component? Give me kind of an idea of how you would actually draw this as a component like on the web, right? So say like you have to build like a login screen, like email and password and the login button. They will ask about networking, between like a GET request or a POST request, like communicating like with the internet and backend servers. They were asked a little bit about, kind of the flow and kind of like what makes up like the JavaScript, the HTML and the CSS. And then I asked more about like the DOM and how that all comes together. So, I mean, there was a lot of stuff. If the way that I studied for algorithms was I went on YouTube. There was this guy, and if you type in algorithms leet code, LEET, like there's this guy, I think his name is Nick Chase or something like that, and I just watched all his videos. Now, interesting thing is that if you go to the LeetCode site, you can actually solve the algorithms in any language. he was actually teaching how to solve them in Java. So I never even learned Java, but because I watched him so much, I was able to actually pick up a little bit of Java, right? So the name of the game is to be as flexible as possible and to find something that kind of makes sense to you. When you do your code challenges, you can do it in any language that you want. I did all mine in Swift.
For this apprenticeship, we have to do it in Swift.
Okay, so yeah, so that'd be cool. So there's a couple, I'll send you guys a website that has a couple of algorithms, but it's not too much. I mean, we'll go over something today. It's a simple little algorithm. We can kind of talk through like how it works and why this is important.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Folks, hey folks, I'm back. I think for all of you asked really great questions. We're gonna do more AMAs around the job search and how to prepare for the technical interviews. I think the Pandora application is actually unique in a way where there are gonna be specific types of questions that they ask you, and the course that they gave you for iOS is actually gonna prepare you for those types of questions. And in my opinion, I think the questions they'll ask you even during the interview are gonna be way easier than a traditional question you would have received as a coding challenge for if you were just applying on their website. And so when we invited Jerrick, one of the great things about having a community like Career Karma is that Jerrick knows both JavaScript and iOS. And so I'd love for Jerrick to maybe show a screen and kind of give people a breakdown on how do you actually get started with Xcode and iOS. Because for most of you, as you get called back for round 2 and round 3, they're gonna ask you to set up your Xcode. They might ask you for some fundamental things around Xcode and Swift. So Jerrick, maybe you can explain at a high level, what are some differences between iOS and JavaScript development?
Yeah, so for sure. So actually, let me just start my screen and start sharing right now. I think this would actually be something that would be useful to everybody. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yeah, you're
okay,
good.
Okay, and I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger for you guys. How's that? Okay, good.
Sure.
Okay, guys, so if you guys would open up, I'm seeing a comment here. Okay, let's see. I got my email.
Yeah,
okay, good.
You got an email, Greg, and I know Caleb got his. So Rosa got hers. I think pretty much as long as you put in the work and you filled out your application, you spend that hour or two doing it, you all should be getting an email. If you haven't yet, check your spam folder. Okay.
Okay. So the main thing that's different between iOS development and JavaScript or React Native development is in iOS native development, you are basically, if you look at line 1, you're importing a whole framework, right? You're not importing libraries. You're not necessarily importing different things that you find off web, although you can. For iOS, we use something called CocoaPods. But for the most part, all the frameworks with iOS, it's a closed system. So everything that contains your buttons, your text, your views, everything like that is kind of already included, right? So we can do import UI kit, right? Or we can import, let's see, we can import Watch OS or something like that, but it basically includes everything that you need, okay? So that kind of keeps it a closed like environment, and you know, that's just kind of the way that Apple is, for better or for worse. Apple, in native development in JavaScript, basically has the same function types, right? You have your strings, your integers, your floats, your doubles, your booleans, and different things, right? So this is what Swift looks like, and I'm sure that you guys know this already. You can say var, right? Or you can make this a let, right? The difference between let and var just means that it's a constant versus a variable, right? I can't change this. And basically, after this equal sign, I'm just saying, hello team, welcome, right? If I want to make a integer, I would just say var in my name 418. Another one would be like 3, and then a Boolean would be basically true. If I want to make this a float or a double, right, I just have to do that, right? And it automatically changes from an integer to a double. If I want to make it a float, then I can basically write float and then do like, right? And now it makes it into a float, okay? So it's you don't have like any semicolons, you know, you don't have like, how can I say, like parentheses and double pointers to make like a functional component or a non-functional component. You don't really have to deal with state as much as you do when you're dealing with JavaScript and you're dealing with making stuff on the web. All the state and all the stuff that's basically handled on native development is basically handled when it refreshes the page, and it's kind of built into the system for the most part, for the simple things, okay? And we'll go into that a little bit later, all right? But that's basically a double, and this is a float. Only because I made it a float here, okay? So that's basically it. And then the Booleans is kind of the same thing. False, and then true, false or true, all right? For the apprenticeship, I think it's kind of important to kind of talk a little bit about some things. So we're going to talk about like interpolation for a little bit. So the way that you would print something in iOS or XCode is you would actually, let me back up actually. This is a playground. Do you guys know what a playground is? Do you guys even know how to get to like a file like this? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when you okay, cool. So when you open up XCode, you want to go to File, and then actually, let's just close this real quick.
Jerrick,
yes.
You're explaining it. Can you actually give like a quick overview of what is Xcode? Because
yeah,
people are familiar with like editors, but like, can you explain what Xcode is?
Sure. Let me share my screen real quick. So Xcode is basically the same thing as, can everybody see this?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. So Xcode is basically the same thing as VS Code or Atom or, can't think of the other one right now, but it's basically a code editor, all right? So with VS Code, you have like a system you can open up files and edit them like a text editor and everything like that. You can keep your projects and keep them all together. Xcode is just Apple's way of making iOS apps. That's basically the same thing. If you want to start a playground, you actually open up Xcode, right? And then you say get started with playground. And since I've already done that, I'm just going to go ahead and go to this intro to Swift. So that's how I got there, right? So this is called a playground. And what the playground is that you can basically write code, and it's just really a soft way. You don't have to open up the whole program to kind of like run your functions, okay? All right, so let's talk about interpolation. Does everybody know what interpolation is, basically? Can somebody tell me what that is?
It's a way to basically print data, stored in a variable or do any kind of calculation in, something that you would print to, your console, the terminal, whether, for like JavaScript, it's like, a $sign and curly brackets in Ruby, exclamation point and not exclamation point, hashtag and parentheses. I think it's a couple different ways to do it, but I don't have too much. I've never really done it with Swift like that. I haven't gotten a whole lot of practice with it, but
okay,
it makes sense looking at it.
No problem. So basically what happened is I make these variables for a reason, right? So we have the welcome variable, the room, the floor, and the Boolean. Basically, I want to make a sentence that says, hello, team, your room will be this room number, and it'll be on the 4th floor. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm taking this variable, which says hello, team, and I'm passing it in here, right? I'm taking the room number, and I'm passing it in there, right? And I'm taking the floor, and I'm passing it here. Everything around that's red is actually something that I'm typing, right? So what it ends up looking like is just this right here. It says, hello, team, welcome. I have this up here. Your room number would be 418 on the 3.222 floor, right? Remember, I changed this to a float. I'm gonna change this back to a double. just by deleting that. And if I run this again.
Can I ask a question?
There you go, 418 on the 3rd floor. Yes.
I don't have like a whole lot of knowledge on the Swift data types. What are the differences between doubles and integers?
Yeah, so that's a good question.
Floats, but like, I don't know the difference.
Okay, so he asked, what's the difference between a double and an integer? Okay, so basically, if I was to write let number, right? Well, let me say integer. Right, equal 3. Okay, that's an integer. Okay, an integer basically has no decimal behind it. Okay, and it's just 3. Okay, a double basically has 2 or more decimals, but it only goes to like maybe 8. And a float has like, you can actually go down to like, I think it's like to the power of like 16 different things. Right, so just takes up more memory. Okay, for the most part though, you'll either be dealing with integers or doubles. Okay, floats come into play when you're dealing like with money and banking systems, right? So like you think that when you go to the store and you buy something for $10 plus tax, and they say, okay, it's like $10.70 or something like that, and it's actually $10.70. What it really is basically $10.69, you know, because it goes on and on and on. And the banking systems, they understand that. So only for systems that have to deal with long numbers. That's what floats are for. Yeah.
Okay.
In JavaScript, actually, if you were to add 1 plus 1 plus 1, you would actually get something like 2.999999999, right? And if you're asking for an integer, it will just be 3. Okay. If you ask for a double, it will be just 3. If you actually ask for a float, right, it will be 2.99999999999, because the way that commuters work, like the 0 actually, and some compiling actually will cause crashes. So they make it simple for the human experience to just make an integer, because that's how humans count, but that's not how computers count. That's all. I guess that's another explanation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So here's another thing too that you can do. So say, for example, we have the variable room, okay? And we have it as 18 right now, 418. If I want to change this, I would just have to say room equals 777. And then if I want to change the floor, I would have to say floor equals 44. I don't have to say var again, okay? Because it's already in the system, it's already in memory, I can just reference it by just calling it its name, okay? Now, one thing that's different is that you don't see any semicolons here, right? You don't see like any pointy arrows, anything like that. You don't have to open up a web browser. This is all here in Playgrounds, okay? You don't have to do like a console.log to kind of print out to see what you're doing. You just say print, right? And to show you that I actually changed it, we have 2 different statements, the same words and lettering. Hello team, welcome. Your room number is 777 on the 44th floor, right? I didn't change anything between these 2, right? So the only thing I changed was the values of the variable. So this is called intercorrelation, right? When you're writing a string, right? And you do backslash and parentheses. I can actually just kind of do that for you right now, right? Okay, you say print, you add your quotation marks, you say backslash and then parentheses, and then you put in the variable that you want. So you do welcome, right? And then I do a space, and I said your room will be, and then the same thing here, just pull in the variable. I can put in the floor this time if I wanted to, right? And it comes up and you see that's an int right here, right? Just like we designed it to be right there. And if I run this, it's not gonna make sense, but this is just for purposes. you guys can see. Hello team, welcome. Your room will be 3, right? Because I set the floor of the variable is 3. And I did that because you don't have to, I wrote it for people who don't know what interpolation is. I just basically wrote a string and I put the variable in there. So it seems like it's a complete sentence, right? So that's important. They will want you to know how to do that. Is there any questions about that? I can go a little bit faster, but that's
folks,
important.
Please ask questions, because if you have any slight question about what Jerrick said, I guarantee you there's other people.
My question isn't about the interpolation part.
Yeah.
Just other things that I'm noticing. I know how a lot of times variables are written in a certain case. In Ruby, it's snake case. In JavaScript, it's camel case. And I see that you're opening your let welcome with a capital W. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you can do, or is that convention? You can do variables in either way, or? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So basically what he's talking about is that this is called camel case, where you have basically a hump, right? So if I had like a variable called welcome home, then the first character would be lowercase, and then if it was 2 words, in the second word would have like a capital letter here. It doesn't really matter. You can do like lowercase, you can do uppercase. In fact, you can actually in Swift, I don't think I have it open. Let's see. Give me 1 second. You can actually make this like an emoji if you want.
I was just curious.
Yeah, you can make an emoji, right? So this is actually kind of cool. They actually tell us how to do this in schools. Like, so for example, this emoji here equals hello team welcome. And instead of putting welcome here, right, I can just copy this emoji and run it again, and I'll get the same sentence. Okay. So in terms of like camel case, or in terms of like lowercase or convention, you can write it however you want. Yeah.
What other questions do people have? I'm gonna start calling on people if they don't speak up.
No, it's okay, because we can move forward. It's okay. The next thing that I want to touch on real quick is the array. Okay, so an array is a collection of characters, right, or sequences. If you want to get it's a sequence of characters. If you want to get into it, you can have an array of strings, right here, right, or you can have an array of number, right? This is camel case, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Both of these have a collection of basically things in there that you can actually go through, right? Now, this is really, really important. Almost everything that we do in software development has an array basically in it. And so in order to count what is the element in the array, you start at 0, okay? So this is array index, and you call them indexes. And this is basically in all languages, JavaScript, Swift, whatever. This is 0, this is 1, and this is 2, okay? When you start working with numbers, you may think that, okay, well, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, once again, this number 1 is at index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? There's 6 elements in here, okay? But this last element, okay, is element placeholder number 5. Does that make sense? Okay. That's very important too, all right? That actually might be an interview question or something they may want you to understand, all right? So the question is, how many elements is in this array? You have 3 elements, all right? So if they say, what element is at index 1, what would you say in this array here? What element is index 1 here? Somebody shout it out. Sad, exactly, sad. Right? Cool, all right? So when you're doing like algorithms and different things of that nature, like that becomes very, very important that you can count, right? Now, I'm just gonna move pretty fast here. This is called a higher, I can't do all of them, but a higher order function, okay? Now, a higher order function is basically something that we attach to arrays or collections to kind of reduce or kind of iterate over them and give us something that we want, okay? So for example, I have this variable here called sad word, right? And I'm saying, okay, let sad word equal array, which is this array here, right? And it seems that if it contains sad, attach a value to this variable, okay? Now this contain pushes what is basically called a Boolean. I've had people call it it's called Boolean or a bool. Just say like a bool, B-O-O-L, all right? People mispronounce it all the time, but it's a Boolean. And it's gonna give you a true or false answer, right? So over here on the right-hand side, does this array contain the word sad? Yes, it's true, okay? Does it contain the word happy, right? Let's see. Yes, it's true, okay? Does it contain the word, let's see, let's just say dog. And it should be false, okay? So these things here, when you have an array and you have basically like a dot after it, it's calling another function on the array. And these are called higher order functions. There's one called map, there's one called reduce, contains, and filter. I'll give you like a little, an article on that, but that's basically how this looks. It's pretty standard in most languages, but the idea is that in Swift, for example, you can hit the period, and then you can kind of talk about the count, right? We just talked about how many elements are in this array. So let's hit and see. We should have 3 elements. Boom, 3, right? 1, 2, 3. If you want the index, 0, 1, 2, okay? So those are higher order functions that you may see, all right? Now, we're gonna go a little bit deeper because you actually may see like this $sign, okay? And I'm doing this for a reason. Can somebody tell me if these are floats or these are doubles or these are integers? What are these numbers right here?
Doubles?
These are doubles, okay? Absolutely, they're doubles. They're gonna be defactored as doubles when you see the decimal sign, right? So I said, let my expense variable, right, be an array that contains elements of doubles, okay? Another way that I could actually write this, and this is probably gonna break it a little bit, but I'm just gonna expenses for whatever. Okay. This is basically the same thing as this without the numbers, right? I'm just saying let this variable called exp equal an array, all right? This is the nomenclature for array, 2 brackets, right? You don't need a semicolon or anything like that. Look, an empty collection requires an explicit type, right? So if it's empty, I could say string. Boom, now it's satisfied. I could say integer, okay? Now it's satisfied. I could say double. It is satisfied. I could say Boolean or a bool. It is now satisfied, okay? So the reason why I start up here with integer, you know, Boolean, floats, whatever, is because when you put them in arrays, you can put anything you want in there, okay? This is an array of doubles, all right? Just right here, all right? Now, with arrays, once again, we have index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And that means we have 6 elements. But I want to go through or filter this array to show all the elements that are above 100. A complicated way of writing that in Swift is to actually use a higher order function like we just used up here. Contains sad. And that was true, right? But we can also include what is called a closure, all right? This is called a closure. And you don't necessarily need to understand this right now, but be familiar with this word closure. Instead that you can use closure in higher order functions, right? You can use this dollar sign and say all the elements in the array that are bigger than 100, okay? and then you can actually print that out and it'll actually show you. Okay, so what this 0 does is that it goes through each number, okay, and only prints out the one that's bigger than 100, which would be 388.77. Okay, so that's what that $sign. It just goes through each one. Now on your, I'm going a little bit fast, but trust me, on when you're doing like your algorithms, you're going to see this $sign a lot. That just basically says every single element in the array. It could be a number, it could be a double, it could be integer, it could be a double, it could be a float, it could be a string, just every single element, okay? All right, any questions so far? I know I went through a lot, but that's kind of like arrays at a high level.
I have questions again. I'm sorry.
Wait, hold on, Caleb. Anybody else? Because I know you're asking a lot, but anybody else real quick?
Greg, you got any questions?
Greg just had to leave.
Oh, he had to leave?
Yeah. Looks like
okay, cool.
Just getting all the value right here, huh?
Yeah.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Let me move on a little bit, Caleb. Hold on to your question because I'm going to hop back into this real quick, okay?
All right.
I have a question. Is that the same like using filter instead of contains?
Yeah, so filter is basically saying, we can actually use filter here if we wanted to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to use filter, and this actually may crash on me because it's temperamental, right? And let's run this. Okay, so you saw how it did 7 times before,
Mm-hmm.
and it did 8, and it did 6 times after. Let's just try this again. Okay, right. So the idea is that expenses that contains an element that's greater than 100, that's that right there. It's going to say, go through it 6 times and it's going to return true. If we did filter, right? This is actually a good question. It's kind of like a bug like with the system, kind of. Let me see if I can actually, it says that it's false, okay? Does anybody know why it's saying false rather than true? If not, that's okay. Basically, what it's doing is that it's actually taking values, right? And it's taking every single element, right, and saying, okay, filter the elements that have indexes above 100. So return to me all the indexes that are that have indexes above 100. There aren't any. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like filtering everything, right? So let's see, maybe if I change this to 5, maybe it'll actually go. Right. And so now it says, does this function have indexes that are above 5? And we do. We actually have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So we're right at 5. And so it says that it's true. So the 2 different things, right? This is saying filter indexes that are less than a certain value. The other one was saying, does this array contain a certain value?
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so the last part is functions. So this is actually pretty much important, and we're not going to stop here. We're going to dive just a little bit deeper, but a function is written like this, right? The first part of the function has the word func for func, and then it has a name, right? This function is called spell, right? And basically what we're going to do is we're going to take a number, right? We actually don't need this here, right? But this is called kind of like a parameter or an argument, right? So we can actually just have it like that. But so we know what we're trying to do. We put number. So when we're actually calling the function, we know exactly what to put there, right? Or what to pass in. We're going to pass in an integer, and then it's going to return a string, all right? So let me just say that again. This is how you write a function. right? You start with func, you give it a name, right? You say what you're gonna pass in, and then this little arrow means that you're gonna return a string. This is actually interesting because you're gonna take a number and then we're gonna say, okay, the number is gonna be 1,000,000, and then the computer is actually gonna type out 1,000,000 in letters, right? How will we do that? So remember how I said like with native development, everything's included with the framework? Well, instead with JavaScript, you would have to like import like a framework called number formatter or anything like that. It's already built in. So we say, let's make a number formatter. We say let formatter equal number formatter. And then we put like these parentheses. So basically calling it a class, all right? Remember how I said that classes can inherit? This is kind of like a template, right? This is the class right here. It's a number formatter class. Then what we're doing is we're taking that formatter and now we're putting a dot sign and we're calling the number style on it and we're saying spell out, right? The next thing that we do is that we have to return a string, right? With functions, you have to return something, right? So we're converting this number into a string and we're saying return formatter string from number as ns number, question mark, parentheses, all right? Give me a second, I'll explain number 52, but let's try it out. Anybody give me a number? Just give me a random number, a big number. You can just say like 1007, whatever.
3,000.
3,000. Andre 3,000. Cool. All right. Spits it out right here. 3,000. Okay. So this is kind of advanced, but this is basically how functions work. Essentially, we'll call the function by just saying what the function name is here, right? We don't have to export anything. We don't have to say this is a function to call to another class. We just say spell, right? And then we say basically what the function is expecting, which is this label here. We can just call this a label. That's the best way to explain it. And putting in the integer here, which is 3,000, right? Now, what if I said I want to do 3,000.5? What do you think is going to happen? Is this going to work or not going to work? Well, you already saw the error. All right, let's see.
Because it's not the what do you call double? Because it's not double.
Right, it's not a double, right? I'm expecting it to be an integer, right? Which is like a round number. All right, so let's check and see if I actually put a double here, will it work? Wow, look at that, 3,000.5. Okay, so this is how important like these types are, right? With Swift, right? So this is called a strict language, which means that it's going to fail right now, right here. It's not going to silently fail. It's going to tell you what the problem is if the types don't line up. Okay, that's probably the biggest difference between JavaScript and
that is great, honestly. Like I think that would solve a lot of problems.
It does. Now, there's this thing in JavaScript what they call TypeScript, what we use here at Gemini and what most companies, just to make sure that the compiler knows what's going on. That's also a hassle, but it's very explicit.
This is what's called type safe, right?
Type safe language, right? Everything the types, like it matters, all right? Let's do one more. Let's just make this an int again, all right? And let's just add a couple more zeros or numbers.
Can I ask a question while I still kind of have some of mine?
Yeah, sure.
So, like you call these functions in the same way you would call them in JavaScript, though, with the parentheses. Like I see on line 47, the number formatter, I see the parentheses, and I'm assuming that's what's calling, you know, I guess that, you know, method for, you know, assigning to the variable here.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to, you know, confirm that you do need to use the parentheses to call a function after you write it, like you have on line 56.
Sure, yes. So absolutely. Going back to your question quick. This number that I typed in, 300,923,402, right? So it can handle that. This right here is called a method, right? But it's really a class, right? If you right click, I wish I could actually show you, but let's see. It's not gonna pull this up. I don't know if you can actually see this. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is the documentation in XCode, all right? If you want to get here, what you have to do is you just basically have to go to Window and then just go Developer Documentation, right? But what Caleb was asking, he said, is this a method or is this kind of like, you know, with the parentheses or what you're calling? Basically what we're doing is we're calling a class called a formatter, all right? It's a little bit above the scope, but the idea is that because we're dealing with a language that can pass certain things from one to another, in JavaScript, this would basically be a dependency or might actually be like another file that you're pulling in, right? So you would say like const number formatter equal parentheses and then arrow, then like write your thing, and then you would call it here. And then yeah, as soon as it's exported, you could call it here.
So
at the top,
instead of importing something like that, like you probably would in JavaScript or React, is that just, you know, built into Swift itself?
Exactly. That's the main difference, right? So in JavaScript on line 2, I would import what is called number formatter, right? And then I would say from, you know, like this file, like whatever, or like whatever. With Swift, you don't have to do that because it's built in.
Okay.
They do that. Apple does that on purpose because they want it to be a closed system. That's the difference between a closed system and an open system. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's basically that. I'm going to go to another document. I'm going to read through this real quick. Does anybody have a question about this, about how to make a function? If I didn't have anything in here, the function basically would be this. All right. Name. That's it. Function, name, open parentheses, close parentheses, right? That's basically it, all right? But I added a whole bunch of stuff in there, so I made it look a little bit more complicated. But that's basically how you make a function. You have a name.
The block, you know, of course, I know that's kind of required, you know, for a function, but when you just laid out the syntax for the function, you don't have to like put parentheses for like an argument, because like in JavaScript, you know, that's kind of default. Even if you leave it empty, it's kind of just there.
Yeah, you're talking about this right here.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You can if you want.
It was just
but you don't.
Kind of curious.
Yeah, you don't have to. You can just say like name, right? But the question is, what is important is what is it going to return, right? So this name is going to return a string, all right? And then right here you have to say return string. And then everything's satisfied, all right? You have to say like what you're going to return. Now you could put the parentheses here if you so choose, all right? But I mean, it's still not going to be satisfied, you know, because we haven't like written anything. Like that's the issue, like with the type safe language. Like it's always going to yell at you until it's satisfied. JavaScript, you can just basically type, and then compile and see what's going on. So that's kind of like that. That's the difference. Like you spend more time debugging on the front end as opposed to debugging on the back end. Yeah. Okay. All right, so since we have just a couple more minutes, I'm going to open up one more file. And this is actually really, really, really cool, if I can actually get to it. It's a little slow, give me a second. Actually, that's not it. I think it is. Okay. All right, so let me explain something to you guys just real quick about mobile development. And if you guys haven't noticed this yet, everything that we do on mobile development is basically called a list, right? If you're looking at Netflix, you have a list of items, right? That either are going horizontal or they're going down this way, vertical, right? If you're looking at your Chase Bank account, if you're looking at any app, basically has a list. So you're building lists all day. There's really 3 things I really want you guys to understand that will actually help you get your Pandora internship that a lot of people don't understand, right? And that is called the table view, right? We're gonna build something really, really quick. I know time is short, but I'm gonna build something really, really quick, and I'm gonna show you how it works, okay? I'm gonna run through each line of code just really, really quickly. Okay. All right. So this, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm gonna make it bigger. All right. So basically, I made a table view. All right. And the table view has these things called cells. Right. In each cell, you can put elements in there. You can put like a text in there. You can put a picture in there. You can put whatever you want in there. Okay. And because we have fingers, we take a little finger and we click on the cell because we want to learn more about it. All right. So here's the title, excuse me. The title is reason I should learn Swift. Number 1, I want to learn because it's fun. I want to learn because it's free. I want to learn because of Pandora. I want to learn because let's get this money. I want to learn because no, for real, let's get this money, right? Like let's get a job. Let's be successful here. All right. What happens once I click this? Boom. All right. This is a very, very simple app that's basically taking text from here. I want to learn because it is fun, and then having it drop, all right? This is basically all mobile development is at its core. Messages, your chatting app. I mean, the list just goes on and on. If you look at Zillow, if you look at America Online, Audible, I mean, just looking at some of the apps I look at today. Gemini, our app, right? It's basically the same thing. You have a list of things. Career Karma, right? They have like the videos and going side by side. And then basically this is a message here from somebody. This is you talking back and forth, boom, 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 boom. All right. So how do you build this in iOS? All right. Or what's the anatomy behind this? We can take this away, but I just say hello, Jerrick at the top because I like to say hi to myself. Import UI kit, right? That's a framework. Right? We don't need to import any libraries. We don't need to call any other files. This is the difference between React Native and native development. Everything the framework is built in, right? We have import playground support. I'm in a playground, so it's basically supporting that can actually draw on the screen. We have these classes, right? Remember how I talked to you about a template and how you can actually have inheritance? I made a class called Why Learn Swift, and I made a controller. I can just name it that. But it's inheriting this colon means that it's inheriting everything from UI table view controller, okay? That's what makes this table view. The table view controller needs 2 things to run, okay? And needs 2 functions. It cannot run without these 2 functions. The 2 functions are this override function and this override function. This is an interview question. I think you guys should just write it down. Right? If you go and tell Pandora, like I know how I made a table view and I recognize it needs 2 functions to run. The function is called number of rows in section and cell for row add. You already got the job. Okay? You already got the job. Let me show you how this works. Okay? Remember how we talked about arrays? This is an array because it's a bracket, right? Remember how I told you that each element is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or I guess, yeah, 4, 5. Yeah, there's 5 of them, right? Look over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, let me back up. Element 1, element 2, element 3, element 4, element 5. Reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, reason 4, reason 5. Everything that you're seeing on your phone is basically in an array. It is a list, okay? What we have to do as developers is just make this list and have it show up, okay? Let's change this list and make it numbers, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. okay? If I was to run this again, and hopefully it doesn't crash on me, it might. It can be temperamental, right? I want to learn because of 1. I want to learn because of 2. I want to learn because of 3. I want to learn because of 4. I want to learn because of 5. Wait a minute. We just had, I want to learn because of this. What did I do? Going back to what we talked about before, interpolation. This is why it's so important, right? Forget all this, like, code, but look what I did here. I used the same backslash, parentheses, and I put my reason in there, right? This is variable reason, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I put it in here, okay? So why is this important? When you download and open up Netflix, basically there's a variable called movie, right? And movie basically has an array of just strings, right? Or array of things. And when it's rendered, those movies come to you and look like pictures. That's how it works. But it's all an array. So when they ask you data structures, it's always an array, right? Dictionary, all this other type of stuff, basically always is an array, okay? Now, what is all this index stuff that you were talking about? How do I know? Okay, let's look at line 31 real quick. I made a variable called reasons, and this is part of iOS development built in the framework. But I said, look at this array called reasons, right? This is kind of complicated. I could have named this anything. I could have just named this child, whatever. Don't worry about what I named it. But what we're getting at, what we're getting at in this, give me 1 second. Sorry guys, it's a little finicky. What we're getting at with line 31 right here is, remember how I said that you can take an array and you can actually do work on that array? This index path, that row, is basically saying, okay, in the array of reasons, which is here, I want to do because it's fun, because it's free. Pandora, let's get this money. No, for real, let's get this money. Assign an index to that. And when you find the index, assign it to the row. So this is index 0. Row 0 should have index 0, right? Row 1 should have index 1. You see how this index and the elements, like, they work together? Does that make sense for everybody? Okay, right? And then, basically what's happening is that you have this cell here and you're assigning the text label, you're saying reason, number. This is to Caleb, this is not like Ruby interpolation. This number sign is basically this number sign here, number 1, right?
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, cool. So in this path, that row, that's basically the index that we just did here, same index, right? And we're saying +1. Why are we doing +1? This is such a clutch question.
Starts, it's an
wait. Somebody else.
It can start at 1.
It starts at 0.
Going to be the index +1. So if it's 0 + 1, we just start at 1.
Exactly. Thanks, Caleb. And thanks, I couldn't see your face.
But the string interpolation for this, is the slash and the parentheses, or just the parenthesis? The slash and the parentheses is the string interpolation, right?
That's it. Yep. Slash, backslash, and the parentheses with the variable name inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So without the variable name, it looks like that. Okay. And then you put whatever you want in there. You put reason. Okay. It's reflecting that. Okay. So this is kind of like I know this may sound like it's a lot. Don't necessarily worry too much about like all the code that's happening here. But the 3 things I want you to recognize. Table views rule the world. You want to be a mobile developer, you want to make it look nice, you got to start here. You got to start with a list. That's it, right? Table view needs 2 functions. It needs number for rows in section. It needs self for row at. Write that down, okay? Even if it doesn't make sense, just write that down. Number for rows in section, self for row at. It will not work without that, okay? Number 3, in order to get the rows and your array to match up, you need index path dot row. You need that. That's the only way that the computer knows how to match the index with the row, right? That's important, or else nothing will populate. Now, sorry. There's another function that's not necessary, but it adds a little pizzazz to it. Can somebody tell me what this says right here? Andre, anybody?
Did select row at.
Phenomenal. What am I going to do with my finger? I just did select the row at. Okay. You need a way to interact with your row, right? So like that's what this function does. Okay. It interacts with the row. If you don't have this here, and I try to run this,
It's like the on click.
exactly. It's like on click or on press for JavaScript, right? Or different languages, right? I'm clicking, but nothing happens, right? I'm clicking, nothing's happening because I need a function to say I clicked at index of 1, right? So I can take everything that's at that index of 1 and do something with it, okay? All right. So that's basically, we can kind of walk through a little bit more of this, but that's basically the gist of what I really think Pandora wants you to know. They want you to know if you can build a table view, okay? And like I said, I'll send links to how to build a table view and how to set it up and how everything works. We ran out of time, but those are the main things. If you could say, hey, I'm building the table view, the first thing I need is I need an array of things, right? So I can populate my table view. I need number for row and section. I need stuff for row at. You can build it. Like, that's like number one. I spent hours and weeks just building table views. Like, that's it. I'm telling you, like, that's all it is. That's all it is. This is where the big money comes. You can build a table view. This is the magic. Okay. And that's why going back to, hold on. Trying to make it full circle for you guys. That's why when you have interview questions about data structures and algorithms, integers, booleans, strings, floats, arrays, all these different things, why it's so important. Because software engineering is really all about manipulating these data structures to show things on the page, okay? That's it. We have an array, I want to show it as a list. Now, some languages are easier to write and make a table view, right? Swift UI is actually super simple. You actually write lists and it makes it. I think in JavaScript, you can actually do that a little bit more simple as well. But this is how it's done in iOS, okay? Now, we can dive into this a little bit more. I don't know too more with the time you guys have, but.
Be respectful of your time, but if you have the time and people are still staying on, then we can keep this going.
Okay.
I'm loving the simulator you have on the right where you're actually showing and people are seeing lists. So yeah. It's up to you.
Okay, let's do a little bit. Let's go over this file. You guys got time to go over this file?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right, let's do this. All right. So basically what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to start going through things and basically commenting them out, right? Now this may break.
Hey, Jerrick, would you mind sending us the code you got in there so people, if they start their own project, they can just paste in the code you had in here?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I'll send you where I got this code. It has all everything that's written out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So basically what's happening is, all right, I started with a class, okay? I'm sorry I have to keep on scrolling down, but this is kind of like finicky. This is the bad part of having like a typed language. I start with the class. My class is why learn Swift controller. Okay, I put a semicolon here, right? And that means that this class is going to inherit everything that a table view should inherit. So to do that, I do UI table view, right? Table view controller. You also have UI tab view. Let's just do collection view that I can make. Right, and a collection view is more so like instead of a list, it shows things like imagine like we don't even have that app anymore. But imagine like a carousel of images that kind of like scroll side to side. Imagine like open up like Netflix and you just see like the video slide side to side. Like that's a collection view. What's basically happening is that you have a table view to list it, and then you have a collection view inside the table view to slide side to slide. Right? All right, but I'm doing a UI table view. Okay. Okay. Now, if I was just to run this, nothing would show up except some lines on the page. Okay. You say it has lines on the page. If I take my finger, I can scroll up and down. But these lines aren't going to populate anything, right? So say I make a variable called reasons, right? It is fun, blah, blah, blah. I have my array, but it's not going to show anything, all right? All right? Why is it not going to show anything? What two things do I need? Somebody who wrote it down, say it.
You need a title or a header?
No, I don't need a title. What are the two methods that I need?
Need the function that prints it to the table, the row.
Yep. Number for rows and sections.
And the cell for row at index.
Exactly. All right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So check this out, right? So I have my reasons, right? And I need my number for row. I type in number for row. If I could actually type number for, I think it's number of rows in section. I just kind of go down here and it types it out automatically for me. This is what XCode does for you. You don't have to type the whole thing. You just type number of rows in section. That's why I keep on telling you that. You literally just type it and it pulls it out. Well, what's gonna go in here? This code, right? Well, basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put reasons down count, right? Why am I doing reasons that count, right? Well, basically it's telling me how many rows do I need? I need as many elements that are in this array. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then I run it again. What happened? Nothing. Nothing. What's the other function that I need?
The cells for row.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're just gonna type in cells for row and it's gonna populate?
Yeah. Cell for row. You want this one up here at the top. And it's going to populate, right? So this one requires a little bit more setup, right? But let's kind of go through this real quick. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a variable called cell, right? Use my semicolon. This cell should be a type of cell that the table view could read. It says that it's expecting a type, UI table view cell, right? It's the second one here. Okay. All right. So I said, okay, every cell in here is going to be a UI table view cell. We're going to bang it out. Bang it just means that it's going to be there. All right. Don't worry too much about it. Usually bangers are like discouraged, but in this method you need it. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do cell equal table view. All right. DQ, reusable cell with string, and it's gonna be cell. So here's something that's different when it comes to JavaScript and native, this is basically handling the state, right? Basically what happens is that every single time we scroll up, there's a cell here. Can you see my mouse?
Yep.
Okay. There's actually a cell down here that's actually being rendered as this cell up here is being deleted, right? So in order to keep memory down, it deletes this cell and renders this here. So it's really just the same cell number of cells, right? I'm going to say it another way. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's no more than 14 cells on the page at one time, right? Even though you'll be scrolling forever on Instagram or Twitter, whatever, you're only getting 14 cells at a time. And that's how it's able to keep its state and it's able to keep its memory. All right, so they labeled that DQ reusable cell, right? I'm gonna copy this here because this is a little bit more complicated. Let's see if I can actually make this work. Okay, cool. All right, so basically what's happening here, this is an if statement. I didn't talk about if statements or else statements because you guys will learn that later. They want to know if you can actually just make a table view work. You don't need an if statement for this. But the idea is that, okay, if the cell is nothing, if there's nothing in there, right? Basically, I want to make this cell a UI table view cell, and I was styled with a subtitle, right? I want to use the reuse identifier of cell, and I want it to have an accessory type, right? If I was to run this, let's see what happens. Oh, sorry. I'm trying not to hop all over the place for you guys, but the reason why it was giving me that error is because I have to remember when you have like this arrow sign, you're saying what to return. It needs to return a cell. You guys see this here? Like these little arrows?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is what this does. This basically says, I'm giving it a subtitle and I have like this disclosure indicator, right? This is important because it gives you as a human like an idea like, okay, let me click on that to see what else happens, right? How come my cell isn't like populating yet? We have a numbers for row and section. We have a cell for row at, but it's not populating, okay? The reason why it's not populating, I'm sorry?
I said you didn't tell it to yet.
Yeah, I didn't tell it to. I'm setting up the cell, right? But remember that index path, that row, like that whole thing, like that becomes very important, right? So we're basically gonna take this here. I'm gonna make this here, so. And sorry, I have to run this again, but that's just to make sure it doesn't crash on us, as sometimes this does. Boom, look at that, it populates. You basically can go home today, right? You did your work, you're done, you got your check, right? You can see it on the screen. Let's talk about what's happening from line 32, 33, and 34, right? I declared a variable called reason. It was a bad name because it's confusing. But basically what it's saying is that let this variable take my array and assign indexes for each element in the array to a row. That's all it's doing. You remember when I made like this cell here? I said cell equal table view, DQ reusable cell. Now I'm gonna customize that, right? Cell has a property on it called text label, which is this right here. And it's optional, but it has text. And on that, it should say reason, number, and then interpolation, and that's path that row +1, right? So I can get the right number. And then also for this cell, it has a detail label in the text, and I want to learn because. That's how you make a table view, and that's how you populate it. So basically what you need to do is that in this, you need to have a variable called cell, right? So these cells need to be UI table view cells, right? You handle the state of the cell. You actually don't even need this. This is confusion if you don't really want. Let me just take this out. Because that was just to make it pretty. Oh, it just crashed on me. Let me try this. Sorry, guys. This sometimes happens. Okay, it's not going to allow me to take it out, but that just added this little donkey thing here, like this arrow. That's all that did. Let me go back from line 24 to 28. Like that's all that did, right? But the real meat of the matter is here, right? When you configure the cell, you say cell.text label, cell.detail text label equals this, equals this. If you can do that, you got your apprenticeship.
You say that again, Jerrick?
If you can do this, you're in Pandora. You got your apprenticeship. 100%. Because this encompasses everything that we've been talking about. It talks about the types. It talks about the array. It talks about the indexes. It talks about the higher order function of how you manipulate an array. It talks about a class, right? An inheritance, right? I made a class with this name, and I said that this class needs to be a UI table view control. Well, if I'm going to inherit a class, that template has to have functions that are mandatory. Some people call them protocols. But what's mandatory is this number for rows and section. What's also mandatory is a cell for row, okay? Once you type that out and it fills it, this first one, you do reasons.count because you want to know how many rows are in the section, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then for this one, you make a cell, and then you basically configure the cell all the way down so it can actually read everything that you want with the index path.row.
And also, let me just jump in and interrupt Jerrick for 1 second. So Rosa asked, how should you prepare for the coding challenge part of the apprenticeship? The best way to prepare is that, let me just weigh in and then you can also answer that because I think it's super important.
Yeah.
When you're trying to solve these problems, they're not looking for your solution. In fact, your solution could be completely wrong. But if you can explain and reason through a problem the same way Jerrick is doing it now, you'll get this job and you'll get many other job offers because they can see that Jerrick understands how classes work. He knows how different elements of XCode and Swift work, right? And he can reason and he can explain that. For people listening still, watch the recording and maybe even write out the way Jerrick is explaining what table view is, what is the numbers of row and section. So you're able to mimic his language and explain things in a similar fashion during the interview. And if you do that, then your interviewer is gonna be impressed the same way how I'm just sitting here listening to Jerrick and I'm like, okay, he's showing them table views, he's breaking down how classes work. And if you can do the same exact thing during the interview, you will get this job. Okay, fam? Jerrick, what are your thoughts? How should people approach the coding challenges for their apprenticeship?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that Timur is 100% right. The coding challenge on learning how to make a string into a number, that's actually really kind of cool. But I'll share that code with you. But honestly, what's more important is if you can do this. I'm 100%. Because there's nothing on our phone that doesn't use a table view. Like this is it, right? And so for the first week or 2 or 3, whatever, that's all I built. I put little emojis in the table view. I segued it's called a segue, but I clicked it and then I did that with my table view. I just kept on building like it was second nature. And then that's how I understood what a class was or whatever. So if somebody was to ask you what is a class, you could say, well, a class is something that you can make that can inherit something like a UI table view. right? And when you have a table view, you need two functions to make it work, number for rows and section and self for row, and then you can start customizing because it's all about inheritance, right? Inheritance basically means, man, I'm gonna go real quick into this. When I click this button, it's going to another view. Check this out, guys. I'm showing this real fast. On class 7, on line 70, I have another class called Why Did I Learn Swift Detail View Controller, and this inheriting a UI view controller, right? So this controller here has no lines in it, but it has a view. What is a view for? A view is like a div. I can put text in there. I can put pictures in there. I can put whatever in there. Once again, I'm using my class name to inherit different properties. A UI view controller, a table view controller, a collection controller. And then I'm just basically like customizing all of that. So that's really what they're looking for, guys, to be 100% honest. Do the best you can, like with the algorithms and everything like that. And I'll show you everything where I'm getting this from. But yeah, if you go in there and be like, hey, I can make a table view, I can make a list, and they're like, show me. And even if, right, even if you don't get it and it doesn't populate, but you have like those methods there, you got it. Like, you're not gonna remember, you're not gonna remember like if celled and text detail, blah, blah, blah. You may, but as long as you have these two functions here, you're good to go.
Yeah. Folks, I think there's some background noise. If people can, I think some people can mute their mics. That would be
That's
great.
me. This construction at the office.
Oh, okay.
So I apologize, guys.
And big shout out to Jerrick for staying in the office on the East Coast. So it's already past 9 p.m. But
Yeah.
he knows what it's like to be in your shoes. He knows what it's like to stay up at night. So we greatly appreciate that. Jerrick, a few questions before we end this meeting. What would you recommend for people to do as they're getting started with XCode? So some people are installing XCode for their first time. How many people have XCode installed already? Anybody has XCode?
Just installed it.
Okay. Who is gonna install it this weekend or is planning on installing it? Okay, I see.
I'm going to start trying it out.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Jerrick, what is your advice for people getting started with XCode?
Honestly, I'm sending it right now. There's this website that is called 100 Days of Swift. And basically, sorry for the noise, guys, but everything that you need to know about Swift development is basically here. You also have like things called Swift in 60 seconds. Download XCode. It takes a while. It's not that difficult. The videos show you like how to open it, how to make. Download it now. Don't wait on passing the code challenge. Download it now because there's going to be another code challenge. There's going to be another opportunity. Like, you want to dive into this as soon as possible. So sorry for the noise. But you're going to want to open up XCode. You're going to want to play with it, but play around with the playgrounds first. Understand, like, you can write functions and you can like actually get in there and like make a variable, call it name, make it yourself, right? Try to print it out. Make that name or that number into like a string, right? Like we did. We put in 3,000 and then it typed out 3,000, right? Do different things of that nature. Like, that's how you get started. Everything like building stuff and like the interface builder, like that can be taught, but it's really knowing about like what these functions do, what a class does, and how to get started. So if you go to 100 Days of Swift, like the first couple of days, talk about everything we talk about, the types, the closures, whatever. And then day 13, you start building your own project. Okay, so if you really want to just dive into building a project from scratch, right? From what we did today and a little bit more, start at day 13 with that link and you're good to go.
I had like one last question. Kind of was able to answer for myself. It was about, classes and structs, but like the part I was able to answer for myself was with the inheritance part. So I can see why your controller would inherit from the, that view So like, my question is like, when would you use a struct then if you mainly like would work classes like for those instances?
Yeah, so the main time we use structs, right, is for pretty much for networking, right? So when I'm building like an app like Netflix, I get from like the back end like a list of JSON, right? That's going to be like movie title, Avengers, rating PG-13, time 217 minutes, actors, array of names, blah blah blah. I need a struct for that model, right? Because that model is just going to be the same for each movie title, rating, time, actors, for all of them, right? I'm not inheriting anything, but that model needs to match up to what I'm trying to build. Then once I build my object and I reference to that model, I may not even want the runtime or even a rating. I just maybe want the movie title and the actors, right? So I can just be like title, actors, boom. My model can handle that. So models are good for structs. Just name, string, rating, string, actors, an array of strings. That's it. A class actually has functions that are necessary for the class to run, that have protocols that need to actually happen. They're going to be drawing things on the screen. There's a little bit more of a dance with classes. Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I know I had a lot of questions. I do
Oh
apologize.
man, it's good, man. It's good. I'm also available. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, because I know he has a lot of questions, but if you have questions later, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, for sure. So guys, hit me up on Twitter, J Warren MD.
I already followed you.
Okay, cool. Sorry for all my dad jokes. Hit me up on Twitter or hit me up on LinkedIn. Name is Jerrick, I think Warren on there. You can find me. That's like the easiest way. Hit me up with direct messages or whatever. And if you, I wouldn't suggest emailing me, but if you wanted to email me and share like code or whatever, we can do that. The only reason I say I wouldn't suggest because I don't check my personal email at work and I'm here a lot. So it may be a little bit tough for me to respond. But Twitter and LinkedIn is pretty much the best way to go. I follow a lot of people on Twitter. Sean Allen, right? YouTube. He's the one who gave me my first shot at a job. Paul Hudson, YouTube. I mean, you guys were just like, that's another one.
What's your Twitter again?
J Warren MD.
Got it.
Code with Chris. YouTube. So if you want to learn how to make a table view, follow one of those guys. If you want to do it like, you know, with somebody, like that's the easiest way to do it. Yeah.
What is everyone thinking? Anyone excited about building iOS apps?
I am definitely excited. Like this was kind of like my main goal, you know.
Yes. I already built two apps before in the past. One of them I didn't finish because I got stuck on it, but the first one I finished it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, guys.
Yeah, I got a question about operating systems. Is there going to be any drawback? Right now I'm working in Mojave because there's software unrelated to coding that I use that is going to break if I upgrade to Catalina. Am I going to face any drawbacks if I don't upgrade to Catalina in any of this iOS stuff that I'm doing now?
So everything that I just, oh crap, hold up. I am on Catalina right now. Give me 1 second. There's just a lot of noise here.
It's still on Mojave as well, so that should work fine.
Yeah, Mojave is going to work fine. Catalina is used for things like Swift UI and everything like that. But in terms of like practicing, don't upgrade. Do what you are using now that's stable, right? Everything that you need to learn right now, you do not need like the newest version of Swift if you don't have it. You don't need to upgrade your computer. Like just, you'll be fine with what you have now. We just updated our computers at Catalina like 3 weeks ago. So, and yes, we had to change things, but I mean, we were building apps up until like 2-3 weeks ago with no problem. So it's not a necessity.
You're muted.
Did you guys just hear what I said?
You were building apps up until 2-3 weeks ago with no problem. Then whatever, I don't know.
That was it. I'm just muting myself because of the noise. Sorry.
Also, for those of you that are worried about losing any of the information that Jerrick is giving you guys in the chat, I will be posting this within discussions. If you guys haven't gotten around to visiting that portion of the app yet, this is a good time for me to just like talk a little bit about that. So definitely go around into discussions. Look at the posts that have already been there. We actually had a post before this AMA for Jerrick just to have some questions. I think that we're still going to be pushing those posts just so that our AMA guests have a little bit more context of like what kind of questions you guys have for them, just to best curate their, certain topics that they want to cover. So we're also going to be recording this. And so if you guys want to have that YouTube video, we'll send you that link as well.
Yeah, I also want to add to what Melvin said. There are 4 jobs at Pandora. Pandora is a great company. A lot of people love their app. And every single one of you can get there, right? You have, until the coding challenges, until other steps in this process, you basically have 2 weeks pretty much to teach yourself and prepare and groom yourself for this interview. So definitely take advantage of each other. There's so much that Jerrick, Melvin, and I can do, but there's 13 of you on this call. There's, I think, over 20 or 30 of you in the Pandora squad. Work together. Like, you might be intimidated setting up XCode, but if there's Caleb, Andre, Lanice, Rosa on the same Zoom call, and you all are setting it up, even if it's just like a Zoom call and you're doing your thing, someone else doing their thing, but they know that you're on there and you can ask questions, I guarantee you it'll be more fun, and you'll see like how much you'll get through than going at it on your own. So if you really want this job, make sure to work with each other to make it easier. Melvin actually added a checkpoint inside of the squad where you can just share if you are looking for a study partner for the apprenticeship, and you can find other people in the squad who have the same goal as you, and just keep going. I'm excited. I can't wait till 4 of you get this apprenticeship, and then you all get hired, and then you come back and help other people get into OnRamp and get into Pandora. So cheers to all of you.
Yeah, guys, I second that. Like, you guys are going to do great. Just want to lower the barrier for you guys. You guys can make this table views. You guys can make it look nice. Other code, like, there's just some things that are just necessary, and you got it. Yeah. The answering questions, just keep on, grinding at it. Look at those YouTube videos and those channels. Start with Sean Allen. He's a good friend of mine. And tell him I sent you.
Also, if anyone here has questions, right, as they're going through their tutorials or the course itself, and you get stuck at some point, you have a whole community like behind you of like people that either have gone through the same situation, or they know a little bit more about like iOS or something. Or on the other hand, if you actually can answer someone's question, you can actually solidify your learning, because you're having to break it down to a certain extent where you have to teach someone else. And when you're able to teach someone else, you kind of get the concepts a little bit better. And so that could be a really good way for studying purposes as well. All right. Does anyone else have anything else to add, Timur?
I just want to remind people that tomorrow night we're going to have a workshop breaking down how do you tell your story when you're answering Pandora's essay question. They actually dropped the questions. They responded to most of you, if not all of you, with the questions. I'm gonna ask Jerrick one of those questions on here, so you guys can hear a response from a developer, just to get your ideas flowing, how you can customize it and make it your own. So, you want me to read it? Yeah, if you can read it.
All right.
Great.
So, Jerrick, if you could answer this. Describe a time you wrote code that either, 1, used the best practices and design patterns, or 2, did not utilize best practices or design patterns. What trade-offs did you make when writing your code? What did you learn from that experience? What would you change, if anything, if you were going through that process again?
That's a good question. So I've written a lot of code that did not meet like current design patterns. And so let's just kind of talk about design pattern in Swift, or native development, that's very, very prominent. It's called MVC. That stands for Model, View, and Controller. Caleb had a question about structs and classes. So basically, in the model layer of my app, you make a struct, and then in the controller view portion of the app, you make controllers to basically deal like basically all the backend, making the call to the server, bringing stuff down, and then the view is the control that shows different things. I created an app that actually had the model and the controller in the same file, meaning that I had my struct, and then underneath that I had a class. And basically what happened was that when the app crashed in my controller, I couldn't tell what was going on because the model wasn't separated, right? It was causing all these errors in that one file. I would change something in the controller, but then it would also be referencing the model at the same time and changing the model at the same time. So I didn't have like different compartmentalizations. And so I was just never getting the correct result. If I had to do it over again, I would literally just sit down and map what I wanted this to do, right? So for example, if I wanted to show an image on my page, I would take one image and say, here's the image. That's gonna be the image. There's a title underneath that. There's a subtitle underneath that. And there's like a little description over here, right? So my model should look like title, subtitle, description, and image. Or it could be image, title, subtitle, whatever, but those 4 things, that's all I need. Leave that alone, go to the next part, instead of always trying to change certain things at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's a really great answer. You guys take some notes right here, for sure.
Yeah, Jerrick, just to give people some ideas too, what are some other things should people consider as they're answering this question? And again, the question really tries to understand, like, does this person understand design patterns, some best practices with XCode or iOS? What are some other examples that they can use as they're responding to this question? Yeah,
so look at MVC, Model View Controller. That's the main architecture we use. There's all these things called MVVM, Viper, whatever, so that you've heard them, but you don't know what they mean, because nobody knows what they mean. MVC is what we use. Another thing that we just did today, which you guys may not think about, was looking at a view controller and then passing data to a detailed view controller. I clicked on that row that says, I'm doing this for fun. That next screen said, I'm doing this for fun, and then it all broke to pieces. I took that data from that one screen and passed it to the next screen. That is called a segue, and that second screen was called a detailed view controller, right? So in an app, most apps basically is master view controller, detailed view controller, right? I'm gonna go with the example of Netflix. You click on a Netflix movie, right? Before you get to the movie, what happens? Go to the detailed view controller. It has like a bigger picture, has more data, and then you hit play, right? That's it. Like master, then detail. I mean, these apps seem magical, but it's really the same stuff over. You click Avengers, right, on that main page. That's the master view controller. You click Avengers, it goes to a detailed view controller. This details all about Avengers. And then at the bottom, Netflix has that button that says play. And then you go to movie player. That's a totally different part of the app, right? So it's really two controls that you're dealing with at all times with Netflix. That main one and that second one. That's basically it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Jerrick, thank you so much for so much knowledge that you shared. And this is your second AMA with us, so people can find the first one on YouTube. Truly inspired by your story, like how much you had to overcome to get to where you are, and just super proud of you. And like it looks like you're enjoying your job at Gemini, working hard, and keep going, man.
Thanks, guys. Buy some Bitcoin. I'm just kidding. This is not an endorsement for cryptocurrency. I'm just messing with you. I'm not your financial advisor.
Yeah, let's give Jerrick a round of applause, folks.
Thank you again, though. It was really helpful.
No problem, man. I'm glad, man. Sorry for the noise.
That's no problem. I probably took up a lot of your time. Question.
No, man, it's good. It's good, man. Like, just look, man. Questions are great. Like, I'm glad we had a little bit more time to dive into it, because sometimes code can seem intimidating. But I sent you guys the link, that first link that I sent. And two more, or Melvin, can you please copy these links before the chat closes?
Yeah, I have them all saved.
Okay, good. That first link goes through everything verbatim.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, guys, well, have a good night. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Man, thanks.
Thanks so much again. All right. Take care.